soon as possible because he loves to serve in so many different ways. Also, please continue to be with board member Tony Minton and her family for the recent passing of her mother. We know it's hard to say goodbye sometimes, but we also know that she's in a better place today. And just please continue to watch over Tony and her family and give them the strength in knowing that this was your plan and we're the better for it. Also ask that you remember the family of the coroner in Sangamon County, the recent plane crash that happened just the other day, the tragedy that struck that community. Lift up the county of Sangamon as they lose one of their leaders, and so unexpected, and we just don't know why, but again, we know that you have a grand plan, but just please give peace to that community as they deal with that tragedy. I also ask that you continue to be with our troops, our men and women abroad and here in the U.S. that are guarding our freedoms and protecting our rights and our liberties. Just please watch over and protect them, make sure that they're safe when they come home. I just ask that you lead, guide, and direct our conversations tonight as we conduct the business of the county. Please lead, guide, and direct all of our comments and what we say and what we do, that it's respectful and it's pleasing in your sight. I just ask all this in your name, I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Sue, will you do the roll call, please? Hold it. I'm sorry. I'm used to running a committee meeting, not the full board.
Thank you, sir. Member Atkins?
Here.
Connett?
Here.
Crawford? Darcy?
Here.
Graff?
Here.
Hall?
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Holford?
Here.
Hovey? Here. Emick? Josting?
Here.
Longfellow? Mennel?
Here.
Minton?
Here.
Newhouser?
Here.
Trail?
Here.
Rich Simpson? Scortino?
Here.
Sin?
Here.
Sundell?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Chairman Zimmerman? You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. First of all, do we have members of the Peoria Chamber Leadership School with us here tonight? I'm going to raise your hands. Is Cammie Colvin here? Oh, in the back. Cammie, hi. We just wanted to recognize your group. Thank you for being here tonight and showing interest in being here for the board meeting. So thank you for your attendance tonight. Okay, the next item, we have a presentation from Carol Riley. Carol's the Senior Partnership Specialist for the 2020 U.S. Census. So Carol, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me this evening. Thank you. As you said, I'm with the U.S. Census, and we are getting prepared for our 2020 decennial census right now. I met with the county board maybe about 11 months ago. Seems like we'll say a year ago, and we are now to 62 days before the census starts. So I wanted to do a brief presentation just to get everyone kind of thinking about this, how you can activate the community, because this is so very vital to all of our communities throughout the state and throughout the nation. As you know, we do this decennial census every 10 years because it's constitutionally mandated to count every single person in the country, every single person in the country. We use this data then to decide how many each state Congress representation. For the last 40 years, every decennial census since 1980, Illinois has lost a representative in Congress every year. We are down to 18. We're concerned about losing 1 or 2 this year if we do not get a complete and accurate count of our people. We also know that federal funding to fund things like Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits, school benefits come from the federal government with a component of the census in it. That represents about $34 billion to the state. We don't want to lose that money. We want to make certain that we have that money coming to us. On a local level, we know that motor fuel tax, sales tax, income tax, all distributed based on a per capita from the state of Illinois. And we live at these numbers for 10 years, so completing accurate count is vital to every community in this county. They will lose funding. They will lose vital funding for roads, for hospitals, for schools. We need to make certain that we count everyone once and only once and in the right place. I wanted to give you an idea of the timeline. I mentioned that April 1st is Census Day. This is our first year that we are conducting census online. People will be able to respond online to the census. We will start mailing letters of invitation to go online, and in certain areas, a letter of invitation as well as the survey itself. Those mailings will start in March. They will be able to go online when they receive that to fill out their census online. April 1st is Census Day. Why is that important? It's a snapshot. It's who is living in this house that normally lives here, has nowhere else to live. We want to count them here. We count college students where they're living because that's where they're using resources. We convince snowbirds to count in Illinois because this is where they live most of the time and this is where they're using the most resources. We know that these numbers additionally impact how we do our representation for the city and the county. If anything if the districts are drawn based on population, all of those boundaries will need to be redrawn after the census. So we start mailing in March. We hit April 1st. We continue to remind people to go online through the end of April. And in May, we deploy local people to go house to house, not house to house, I'm misspeaking. To the houses that haven't responded, we send people to knock on the door. Did you forget to do it? How can we help you get this accomplished? Because we know we need those counts. We have to be done with this count in August. We deliver all of the data to the president December 31st. And then it comes back to the community in April of 2021 for all the redistricting that has to be done. So that's our timeline. I mentioned already non-response follow-up. This is important to the community so that you know when people come to your door. We tell people, if you don't want someone knocking on your door asking about your business, complete the census online, do it in paper, or call us over the phone. Those are the 3 ways to respond. Because you don't want us coming, you need to get it done. Just get her done before May 1st, because then we start deploying people. And we only go to the houses that have not responded. We only go to the houses that have not responded. And because we're online, we'll have a real-time idea of what that will look like. And Wendy and the team will be able to see, hey, we have not gotten a response from this area. Maybe we need to do a mailing. Maybe we need to push out an email. Maybe we need to mention something on the website. So we can be very targeted so we make certain we don't miss anyone. I mentioned that we will send people to houses that haven't responded. We want to hire locally. We have jobs available in Tazewell County. They will be spread out across the county. We want people that live here to get those jobs. We're paying anywhere between $17 and $22 an hour for these jobs. So they are good. They are part-time jobs, but they are good jobs. And we need local response for that, so that when someone comes to the door, oh, I saw you at the local grocery store. Oh, our kids go to school. Oh, I saw you at church. The barrier for response comes down, and people are more likely to give us their information if they had any hesitancy. More so than if I show up from Chicago, for sure. We are talking about a committee. So what does a committee, a census committee, do? A census committee helps us have that local trusted voice in the community. You all know the vitality of this community. You, better than I, can say to someone, it's important that you do this. 3 simple things. It's important to our community, it's easy, and it's safe. It's safe. Going online, everything we do is triple encrypted. All of personally identifiable information is locked away for 72 years. 72 years. So 1950 census data is just going to be released. Just going to be released. We need the statistically significant data. How many? How old? What sex? Why? It helps us plan. It helps your planning communities know we might need another hospital. Should we approve that elder care facility? Oh, look, our population is aging. This is how many aged people we have, so we can make intelligent decisions. We know our biggest users of our data are Amazon, Target, and Starbucks. Those three. They decide where they're going to put things for workforce. They decide where to put stores, that will have the most impact. I included a copy of the sample questionnaire, the very first questions. There is a lot of disinformation and misinformation, and those are two very different things. Misinformation is someone heard something and they passed it along like telephone. Oh, I heard, and they passed the rumor along. Disinformation is purposely feeding wrong information. Oh, the census is going to ask for your social security number. We are not. The census is going to ask for your income levels. We are not. We ask very simple questions, 6 questions plus household questions. How many people are living here? How are they related? What are their ages? What are their sexes? What is their origin? What is their race? And how are they related to each other? And then we also ask for the household, do they own or rent that home? Why is that important to us? It helps us understand housing affordability. What's going on in our community? Do we need more apartments? Do we need more single-family houses? Are families being gathered together because they can't afford to do other things? So we look at those very simple questions. But that's all we ask. We also ask for names, I should say. We ask for names. Why do we ask for names? Ask any genealogy person how they're tracking their family, right? This helps us track families in 72 years when your family wants to know where you were. Next steps would be for us to help to get support from the community and from the board. You are influencers. You say something about the census and people will listen. You talk to your constituents and say, this is important to our community, and they will listen. Church leaders can say, this is important to our community. Chamber of Commerce, this is important to our community. Schools. We need this team of local influencers to get the word out that the census is important, safe, and easy, so that we can dispel any rumors that may come up, and we can answer the questions, and we can push out the information. Hey, you're going to get it. This is what it's going to look like. Make certain you complete it. The census is here. Make certain you complete it. That's really all I had. I usually do 30, 40 slides. There's a lot of information out there. If anyone is interested in more information or about our jobs, 2020census.gov is our website. All kinds of resources there. And so I will encourage you to please go there and look at what's going on with the census. 62 days. 62 days, $34 billion.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help. Okay, next up we have a presentation from Sheriff Lauer on updates from his office.
Not so much a presentation other than a conversation with the board, and I will be brief. If I'm not, Sue's going to be giving me dirty looks. I just wanted to let the board know what I've been doing this past year. It's been a year since I've been in office, and I'm blown away by the time and how fast it's gone. But I just wanted to let y'all know what I've been doing, what the office has been doing, and introduce Stacy Kemp, who is my new jail superintendent. Kurt Ulrich retired December 30th. Stacy, I was lucky enough to steal her from the Department of Corrections. She worked for the Department of Corrections for 30 years, recently retired. I was able to get her to move up here. She retired as the Chief of Security for Perry Marquette Juvenile Detention Facility down by St. Louis. So she hit the ground running, and she's been doing a great job ever since. So I just wanted her to come to the meeting and have everybody see her. So, the number one challenge that I've had this year is personnel, and that's across the board in law enforcement. And I would encourage you, the board, if you have any questions, please interrupt me and just ask. Like I said, this is just a conversation. I just want you to know what's going on. I very much appreciate the board's support and the partnership that we've had this past year, and I want to continue that by just letting you know what's going on. Like I said, the personnel has been the biggest issue I've had. We were shorthanded when I started, especially in the jail. We're full staff now. 2 weeks ago, we did have, excuse me, one CO that quit and went to East Peoria, which I have no issue with that. He's trying to better his career. He is getting going into law enforcement on patrol, and he left the jail. So we're one short, but other than that, I'm thrilled to say that the overtime budget that we have consistently gone over this past several years, we've cut that budget in half as far as what we're spending the past 3 months, and we're on track to actually come in under budget this year if everything continues the way that it has been going. And I've been managing the budget since 2010, and we've only come in under budget once. So I'm really excited about that. But we are full staff, deputies and COs, trying to keep it that way. We're fortunate that we do have a department that's very desirable. People want to work here, and I think that has a lot to do with the environment of Tazewell County. So, like I said, the training has been the biggest issue, and I'm sure all of you are aware of the state and the way they like to sweep funds and change fees. Well, last July, they changed all the fees for traffic fines and where the money goes and how it's divvied up. And we're just now feeling the impact of that. The Illinois State Training Board has got their budget almost cut in half. So we've got we've got the mandates that the state's putting out that they're not giving enough money to fund those mandates. Most of our MTU and local training courses have been either cut or severely reduced. So we're looking at doing a lot more in-house training, a lot more online training, which it's a challenge. It is, but we're up to the challenge, and so far we've been kind of meeting or exceeding the mandates. But that's the goal for this year. And as far as the jail, because we've been so short-staffed, some of the training has been it's been lacking, and Stacy's helped with a lot of that. We're building a lot of our leadership development. Because we do have such a young department, we have young supervisors, the training is critical. So that's moving forward. We're gearing up for a lot of the online training through IPMG. They've been helping us with that through ICC, and it's really been received very well by the employees. But we're constantly reevaluating the cost versus benefit on some of our training. We're trying to maintain what we have, but some of the training, like accident reconstruction, costs upwards of $8,000, and it takes months to go through. So we have to evaluate whether or not the cost is worth the benefit. We do have reconstruction is now, we're trying to maintain that, but that's the challenges that we're going through. But like I said, the jail has been a huge focus, and I would like to give a compliment to one of the jailers. I'm sorry, I hate that term, jailer. It's a correctional officer. She stopped a suicide last night. I know this is something that typically doesn't go out. You only hear about the ones that actually complete it. We've had 3, I believe, this past year that have been stopped. They've been saved. Last night, Correctional Officer Works actually checked on one of the girls that were in one of the holding cells, and she was covered up and didn't look right. Went in there, checked on her. She had a t-shirt wrapped around her neck and was nearly suffocated. So that was stopped, and I greatly appreciate the work that Stacy's doing and the hard work that the COs are doing, because they're doing a very good job. And I'm going to be their biggest cheerleader, because I'm very proud of them. But one of the other things that's been going on this past year is updating all the security. There are some areas that we've been lacking in. We've been trying to update those, the cameras, and like any other technology, it gets old, been getting replaced. Court security checkpoint, any of you have been in the courthouse this past year, that's been updated, that's been long overdue. Also changing policies and procedures to be more efficient, changing some of the door access in some of the other buildings, trying to make things more secure. You know, active shooter training, trying to get more of that out there. There again, the training is it's a huge issue that we try and combat every day. The other buildings, we're doing assessments on those to see what can be updated and what can be changed. Currently, we're updating our central control in the jail, which controls all the doors. Hadn't been touched since we built the building, and it was a lot of the electronics were getting really old, and the flow and the way it worked was severely limiting the efficiency. So that's almost finished. And if anybody noticed this little banner I got out in the hallway, we just released an app for the department. It's something that I worked on for about 8 months, trying to get that up and going. Excuse me, still trying to get over this cough. And that's something anybody can download for free. It's a huge benefit to the department, huge benefit to the people of Tazewell County. You can go on there and pretty much access any information about the jail. Inmates in custody, the warrants that are out there, visiting. You can even apply for a job on there. So that's just another tool for us to be able to get information out to the public. That's been the most recent thing that we've completed. Now, this next year, I think my #1 goal is to try and minimize liability through training and some of our continuing policy updates. And I think Wendy shares my desire to reduce attorney's fees. That's a huge one. But we want to continue the leadership development in the jail. Like I said, we have such a young workforce. I think that's pretty important that we help and mentor our subordinates. The in-house training, the patrol side is going very well. We have a lot of very good people. But everybody, I know, I came to the board constantly last year asking for new hires, asking for training. We have everyone trained. Our last deputy has made it through FTO, and they're all on their own, and they're all doing very well. Hopefully we can maintain that. We do have a couple of retirements this year, but we're on track to get those filled without any real difficulty. Like I said, I'm hoping that the state is going to reconsider the way that the funding is distributed, but you know, you all know the state. I don't know that that's going to happen, so we're going to have to rely a lot on ourselves. There are two large projects that I wanted to let the board know that's coming. One of them relates to the jail, and it's in the form of a full body scanner. I have 3 correctional officers that are working with some of the other agencies, the jails within the state. We're going there, looking at their equipment. One of the reasons are with the new marijuana laws, we seem to be seeing a lot more drugs coming to the jail, a lot more people ingesting drugs. This piece of equipment, as the salesmen tell me, will be able to see these baggies or anything inside before a person comes into the jail. I want to see it in action. I want to see it in a jail actually performing before I come to the board and ask for any assistance on a purchase. So that's in the works. Just wanted to let you know that. We do have another huge project that is pretty much countywide. I am the chair on the committee for the radio system on the ATSB. Our current system has reached end of life in 2017. It's no longer supported. You can't buy new parts for it. There are used parts out there, but the system is failing. We've had problems for years, and the committee is looking at the possibility of a countywide system. Now, we're fortunate in the fact that we're surrounded by counties that have StarCom, which is a statewide system, and if we switch to it, the transition should go smoothly, but anything electronic never has. But we are also in a good position where there's another company that wants our business, and they're out of Iowa. It's called Raycom. They're the StarCom version in Iowa. So we're very attractive because we're right in the middle of the state. We're right in the middle of StarCom's, their area that they service. And so they're kind of fighting over us. But having said that, it is going to be a big expense for every department in the county, not just the county. And I'm just bringing that forth to let everybody know about it. But my guess, we're probably not going to have to discuss that as far as financially until 2021 or possibly even 2022 budget, because this is we haven't even come to the point where we're looking at, or we've signed for one system or the other. And even from the day we sign the paperwork, you're looking at 12 to 18 months before that system is up and running. So I will inform the board, when we get closer and we have more information on that. But like I said, I just wanted to come to the board, let you know what I've been doing. In case anybody has any questions, I would encourage any of the board members that want to come and tour the jail. You're more than welcome. Just get a hold of me or Stacy and come in and you can take a look at what's going on over there. And if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to make up an answer.
Thank you, Sheriff. I know you've had a busy year and there's a lot on your plate, but you've been a great partner with this board, and we appreciate the updates, and keep up the good work, and welcome to Tazewell County. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any communications from members of the public or county employees at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to communications from elected and appointed county officials. Auditor?
Looks like it's going to be a long night, huh? I'll keep it quick. I just want to say that the county board, the county clerk came to me in September about, I know we have a problem with this censoring, and we have a problem with communication. And I just want to come up and let you guys know, the boards, I don't get up here enough, and it's my fault. I should be more active in trying to get back with you guys. But I want to let you know that the county clerk did come to me in September and talk to me about these raise increases and what he was going to do with his fee funds. I did look into the fee funds and how they're being spent and how they can be spent. I, as an auditor, cannot tell him how to run his fee funds. I can't do that. We can't tell them to do that. So, first of all, I want to say that I believe that he had every right to spend his fee funds the way he did. I know there's a problem with there's maybe a problem with the union, but remember the unions deal minimums, not maximums. I did look into the fact that all these positions that were being increased stayed within the increase that they're like a certain level. They have a range, and they stayed within the range. I did pay attention to that, and I did look at that, and I did contact other auditors in the county. In the state. So I want to let you guys know that I was watching that, and I know this is a big deal. It's kind of like impeaching about like someone losing their job. The other thing I want to talk about real quick is communication. I don't believe that you as a board are getting all the communication that you should have to be able to make the decisions that need to be made on a lot of things. This is my opinion as the auditor. I believe sometimes you don't get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I would hope that in the future you just ask more questions. And my office is open. My phone is always available, and you can always call me. And not just from my perspective. This is my perspective, but my perspective is to pay attention to what's going on in the county. I want to thank Jeff Lauer for everything he's doing, for everything that he just talked about here, are things that I saw in the very first year I was here, that we weren't safe. And he's done a really good job. So that's all I have. So, yes.
Thank you.
I try to keep it quick.
Any other communications from elected or appointed county officials?
Thank you, sir. This topic of the payroll increase to my employees has been a subject of discussion now for 2 months. Yet, many of you will be hearing from me now for the first time, because this is the first committee in which I've had the opportunity to address you. I've respected by not interrupting your meetings when I've heard items being discussed that I knew were inaccurate or that were not the full picture. I was wanting to see if any of you would ask me a question. None of you did. I've communicated to you. My office is always open. Throughout this process, I've sent you emails, sent you communications. I've seen many of you and told you if you would like to come in and talk with me, my door is open. Some of you did, and I appreciate that. The most vocal ones did not. So then we end up with an incident like we had last night, where the county board chairman went on public TV with flat inaccuracies concerning this pay increase, falsehoods and exaggerations. The biggest one would start out with the amount. The quote was over $100,000. You all know it's not over $100,000. You know the amount was $89,804. That's not an opinion. That's not hard to figure out. That's what the number is. It's been the way it was since it was put in place. There was a comment that I spent $45,000 to remodel my office. You all know that's not accurate. The $45,000 remodeling my office from fee fund revenue. You all know that's not accurate. The $45,000 was the total cost of the project, of which $22,444.56 was paid for by the state of Illinois through a grant from the federal government, because the federal government came and did a risk assessment on the office and determined that one of the risks that we have in the election division was physical security, and that these improvements that were proposed would fix. So they paid for that portion of that project. You know that you paid $5,000 for this. It was a vote by you several months ago in support of this project being done. You know that I said that I would pay $5,000. So that's another one off of it, out of our capital funds and our clerk line item that hadn't been spent. What you may not be aware of is that it looks as if we may only hit our fee fund for a couple $1,000, at most $5,000. The remainder of it was money that we saved in our budget last year that we didn't spend, that we used to pay for these projects. That's money that you allocated for us that we did not spend, so we utilized it to pay off this project. So it's a complete inaccuracy that could have easily been answered. The media has received, and you've received, the comments concerning the legality of this. It's something that had been debated quite a bit, discussed quite a bit. This is stuff that has been, counties have been around for a long time. These things are finite and laid out pretty well. There's a lot of case study that's shown. The fee funds, or the rate of compensation for employees is an independent elected official's responsibility. The board, quote, has no authority in the rate of compensation for independently elected officials' employees. I don't know how to make it any more clear, but it's been laid out. A lot has been made as if this is reinventing the wheel. Well, no, let me back up real quick. The numbers, just going over them. I have 9 employees that are a grade 11. I had them before. They remain a grade 11. None of them changed. I have 2 employees that are a grade 12. They're both still grade 12s. Nothing changed. I have 2 employees that are grade 13. They didn't change. They're still grade 13s. There's an idea that I changed classification somehow. I did not. I did not have to follow the salary scale that you presented, that so a grade 11 makes this to this. However, I did. I did not change any employee salaries outside the grade level outlines. My employees pay, just so you know, because these tend to be items that are brought up. An employee, half of my employees were making on average $14.90. The big 18% increase was they went to $16.50. You just heard the census is paying better than that. I've got 5 employees that on average were making $17.69. They're now earning $21.75. That's the big increase. The other one, 2 of them were making $22.94 on average. They're now making $26. Those pay numbers are in line with comparable positions in this county and other offices. We didn't just pick numbers out of the sky. We took a look at the pay scale that I have the payroll numbers, reviewed them for over 6 months, analyzing and working this out. There was talk about me increasing the budget and the danger I've done to your general fund. If you guys would turn to your budgets, you would see this year that I returned to your general fund $43,000. The line item you approved that I requested for expenditures for my employees is $43,000 less than it had been in previous years because of implementations we did in our office to lower the cost of our elections. That's already off the books. You voted on it. You approved it. That includes this pay increase being in there. So even with this pay increase, I've reduced your general fund expenditures for my employees by $43,000. I'd like to know another department that's pulled that off for you this year. In your budget, it's brought up as if this is brand new. No one's ever done this before. Your GIS fee fund comes from the same revenue source as my recorder of deeds fee fund. That's my office. My office generates the revenue for your GIS fee fund and for my recorder of deeds fee fund. Since 2013, you've increased the employees coming out of your GIS fee fund over $117,000 since 2013. You're now up in over $250,000 of employee salaries coming out of your GIS fee fund. I didn't recreate the wheel. You guys have been doing this for a long time, and you've been voting and approving it. This isn't my control, this is yours. By the way, mine is still growing, my fee fund. Yours is scheduled to go down $72,000 this year because you guys have overspent. You're spending more money out of it than you're bringing in. So the idea that I can't financially sustain this, mine's growing still. I have managed mine properly. We have used it for items that you've requested as well. The real estate agents that utilize our office wanted to see records digitalized back to 1980. That was accomplished in December. That was a $100,000 investment last year to get that accomplished. It's done. That revenue is available now to be used elsewhere. And I've decided to invest in my employees. You know, there are other items I was going to cover, and I know that this is a done deal, that you guys have made up your minds on this, and that's okay. A little history I wanted to do on the act of censoring. Russ is a history major, he'll probably like a history buff, he'll like this. The first politician in United States history to be censored was Alexander Hamilton. We talked a whole lot about him recently in national news. He got censored because his rivals in Congress did not like what he was doing in administering as the Secretary of Treasury. We still talk a whole lot about Alexander Hamilton. I will apologize, but I could not, despite a lot of research, I could not find the names of his rivals in Congress that censored him. I do apologize for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of October 30, final budget meeting, and November 20, 2019 county board proceedings. So moved. Motion by Wolf, second by Hubby. Are there any questions on any of the minutes presented? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We do have 4 in-place meetings, so we'll try to get to these pretty quickly. First is an in-place property committee meeting. Chairman Harris.
Would you call the roll, please?
Harris.
Here.
Josie. Here. Darcy. Here. Rapp.
Here.
Newhouser.
Here.
Shortino.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to start with a comment. In the property committee, there are some areas of concern, and I want to address a couple. Maybe they may be minor, but I'd like to address them. Due to the circuit clerks, in my opinion, television and eye attitude, I'm going to cover every base I can find to make sure it's on record and everybody understands it. County clerk, sorry, county clerk, that all is on record and we're covered, so no changes or anything to be made. The first item is scheduling the facility at the EMA building. That has to be done through EMA staff all the time. You can't just walk in and take over, which has been done. The second item is the EMA building is the EMA building. It is not the election tabulation facility. It's going to stay in the EMA building and we'll do functions there. So, that's my little speech. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the replacement of the storage unit for the county clerk pending proof of grant approval. Motion by Mindy, second by Mary Jo. All right. Are you the property manager? I don't. No. Okay. I need a second on committee. Frank, thank you. I'd like to start discussion. I've asked Don, and we looked out there, there's no other space to store what the county clerk wants to store out there. So he's asked that he buys a 40-foot shipping container and places it on the ground behind the EMA building. The concern I have, and I've been approaching this concern, is the sightliness of this container sitting in our Tremont complex. We have a nice facility out there, and it would be unsightly. I would like to, as we discuss, impose a time limit for that container, for them to find a place to store or build a building to store. So, open for comments on this issue. Nick?
Mr. Chairman, I don't support a container out there of this type at all. I think we, as the county, need to be the example to property owners in our county that throwing a metal container out to store things in, even though it's an important process, the elections are important, I don't want to be on the board that approves that. I talked with Crystal today. It's my understanding that the county ordinance does allow this. However, if this would be a semi-trailer, even with or without wheels, it wouldn't be allowed under our ordinances. My question to her was, what's the difference? She had no answer to me, other than at one point we approved shipping containers. This isn't San Diego, California. There is no ocean close to Tremont, Illinois. I think it's inappropriate for this board to approve this type of storage on our property. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? The full board, anybody can ask.
He asked that I was concerned about the zoning and how that would fit in. That was my only concern.
All right, the grant has been approved for this, so the money is available. Any other comments? Russ?
Yeah, it's all zoning kosher. I mean, Nick said, why this but not that? It's because the zoning committee and the county board approved that, that's why. And Crystal administers what we approved. I can understand John's initiative, I can understand your objection, I can understand Nick's comments. So I guess the question is, what are the alternatives? Are there alternative methods to store it so that he's got the space situation and it's not unsightly? I mean, if anybody's got alternatives, let's hear them.
Well, we can rent or build.
Build another building?
Yes,
That's costly.
I understand. Don't disagree.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to criticize. I asked suggestions and you make one and I criticize it. I apologize, Mike. But there's got to be some alternatives that don't involve building an entire new building.
Agreed. Mandy?
John, have you looked at any other locations? Is this the only location that's an option, or is there possibly somewhere else we could look at putting this?
I don't know of another location that we own where we could place this. We did look at rental. That is where we'll have to go, but it will cost the county a lot more money in the long term for me to rent a storage unit to place these. We made sure that the storage container that we're going to purchase isn't a trash one, that it wasn't, I guess, unattractive for a storage container. That's what we were looking at. We really were just looking for the most economical way that we could do this. We looked at all the properties we have here in Tazewell County, and we just don't have the space for the amount of material that we're going to need to store available. So.
Monica? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess you bring this up. My question is, most all of these materials are being stored at the separate townships at this time. So why is it that you think that this needs to be done differently?
Thank you. My staff is going to be leaving the office for 5 days coming up here soon, 4 or 5 days, to drive around the county and inspect all of this equipment to make sure that it is safe before we use it that it is secured, that we use so we can use it before the election. We had incidents of items that were damaged and were not functioning the way they were designed to function. You realize there are 80 different locations through Tazewell County where the stuff's stored at now. so that I'm driving all through the county, trying to arrange times to meet with them, trying to get into, that's why it's gonna take 4 or 5 days. By having it now all at one central location, one, we'll be able to get you an inventory. We right now don't have an inventory of where stuff's at because it's just been dispersed. We'll be able to uniform it so that the equipment all is of the same quality, or the same standard. If you go to a polling location in one spot and a polling location in another, there's totally different looks because of equipment we've dispersed out over time and we don't have records of them. And this also goes along with a recommendation from the state of Illinois and our cybersecurity efforts of making sure that our physical security is as good as possible. That's why we need to start doing the inspections of the equipment.
Okay, I still, as I recall, she's retired now, I don't know who took her place, the election supervisor, and I apologize, I don't,
Her new name, the new employee's name is Vanessa.
Okay, whoever that is, but before, over the years, they had called and talked to the supervisors, and as far as inventory, that was done in that fashion, and that way it wasn't all over the board. Everybody, they knew pretty much what they had in each township. Excuse me. And then as far as inspecting these booths and machines, how are you going to do that? You're still going to have the situation where you're going to have to load and unload and inspect, and it's still going to take an amount of time and labor intensive. And I don't know how you're going to all the townships and set up all these voting booths. It's going to take a lot of labor and a lot of time, and I don't mean just 8 hours, I'm talking days. Because I do know that our township, it takes a couple of days to get things set up just in our township with the precincts.
And that's, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we recognize that. That's phase 2 of this, that we're not rolling phase 2 out during this process. We've talked with the townships about phase 2. Phase 2 though is projected to save us each election around $4,000 to $6,000. Right now we spend $11,000 on storage of this equipment and placement. And when we've run the numbers on our staff distributing the equipment rather than the townships, we end up with a savings, like I said, of about $4,000 to $6,000.
Are you still expecting the townships to come and pick this equipment up then?
No.
And then set up the booths?
No.
The precincts?
We will be distributing. In the future, we would be distributing it. But we are not enacting, I want to make it clear, we're not enacting phase 2 until after the presidential election. We did not want to do something different in a major election.
Correct.
We're looking at 2021 for implementation, and that's after lengthy conversations with the townships will take place.
Well, how would you do that? You don't have the equipment to do that. And how the trucks, because you're going to have all of that.
And we realize the board wouldn't approve for stuff like that, so that we've written into our projections rental of equipment for that period, like we rent currently a U-Haul to drive the ballots from the tabulation facility back to the Pekin location. We rent a U-Haul for that, so the projections are off of the cost of how much time and labor is involved in that.
I just think it would cost a lot more money than how it's set up at this point, because the townships take care of all of that. I know the county does reimburse some, but for a lot of the township absorbs a lot. Mm-hmm. The man hours, putting up the precincts, the polling booths, taking them down, storing them. It all goes into being, I just don't see how that, I've watched this process over the years, for 21 years, and I do not see that happening as smoothly as what you say it would happen, because it will not. And you will have spoilage, and you will have materials that you will have to replace in that. So I just, as far as the hours that would be involved in keeping it in a central location and dispersing it, I just don't see how that would happen. It's just, you would have to have a lot of staff and a lot of time to get that done.
Let's move on, the point's made. Lindy, you had a question?
Yeah, I just thought maybe, John, you could tell people exactly what equipment, because I don't know that everybody understands like what equipment you're talking about, storing centrally, what equipment will stay on site at the polling places.
The iPads, everything else is stored in our, temperature controlled facility. It will remain that way. We would not be placing them in this. So the biggest part of this is finding a location for 80 large garbage can sized drums when they can only be stacked too high. That was the square footage was what we needed, and that was what we can't accomplish anywhere else here right now of the buildings that we have. And trust me, I looked at the basement of the arcade building. We were trying to find whatever we could think of, and we just don't have it.
Nancy?
I'm not on the property committee, but I think John has good intentions here of trying to do a very efficient way, but it seems to me that this might be an item that has to be further researched, and perhaps, I understand the grants involved there, that's the one problem, but I just don't think this is really ready to be rolled out where the public is going to accept, or the board can accept what John is suggesting, even though it may be the best way. That's just an observer from not being on the property committee.
All right, Tony?
I'm not on the property either, John, just so I can understand. So you said you don't have an inventory? Like we have machines out there that we don't know where they're at, or?
Your tabulators, everything that is the most vital, we have. That's in our office. We have an inventory of that.
Okay.
But we've dispersed equipment to townships over the years, and there's just a large array of them scattered all over of different styles, different variations. No inventory, of what I have.
And agreed, I'd like it to all be, we'd like it all to be a system that we can all work with, that all works together, but I don't like knowing that there's things out there that we don't know where they are and trying to get them all together.
And I guess if I could back up one item, I do agree with you. We've had a wonderful arrangement with the townships for a long time. And I thank them. I don't want them thinking I'm kicking sand in their face or anything like that. However, I'd like to have a conversation with you and with any of the board members that want. We have a risk by leaving items at a facility outside of our control. We've had an incident. It was quickly fixed in the last election. We would have had a huge problem though if my staff had not been on site and immediately fixed a mistake. And it was a mistake by the township. However, we're passing that burden on them to be perfect.
Let's spend a lot of time on this. I got two more questions and I'll move on. Greg?
I'm not on the committee either, but you said that there's equipment at 80 different locations around the county. Well, in our township, that it's all in one spot, 18 precincts worth. Another township next to us, it's all in one spot. So I don't know, that's a lot of locations. When I know two of the townships, there's one place they're at. So I just want to make that clear that it's not like they're just spread everywhere. I'm going to support this because I think it's something that's fairly temporary, and if it doesn't work out, we're not investing a lot of money in something we don't need.
Nick?
Mr. Chairman, I think this board has gone astray from what the motion is. I don't want to be on record as a board telling the county clerk how to run his elections. That's his responsibility and his duties, and he needs to do the job that he thinks he needs to do best. The question before this board is, do we want to put a shipping container on our property so the county clerk can store facilities? I think it's time for more questions.
Okay. Question's been called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Now let's go roll call on the committee for the motion. 4, calling for the question.
Joesting? No. Darcy? No. Rapp?
No.
Newhouser?
No.
Shortino?
Yes.
Wolf?
No.
Chairman Harris?
No, we're saying no to calling for the question,
Oh,
right?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
sorry.
voting, misunderstanding. If you vote yes, we'll call for the question. If you vote no, we won't call for the question. So let's do roll call again.
Call for the question. Joseph? Yes. Darcy? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Newhouse?
Yes.
Shortino?
Yes.
Wolf?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called for. All in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Committee, in favor of the motion as presented, to place the storage unit at Tremont. Committee, property committee?
Mr. Chairman, I think you have one aye vote from Mr. Sorrentino.
All right, nays, and I'm sorry. Nays.
Aye.
Okay, with the nays, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion is defeated. On the second item, the state did not approve the request for the grant, so that item is being pulled. And we are in recess.
Thank you. We now have an in-place Finance Committee meeting. Sue, would you call the roll, please?
Chairman Newhouser?
Here.
Graff?
Here.
Atkins?
Here.
Connick? Here. Darcy? Here. Harris?
Here.
Emmett? Mennel?
Here.
Minton? Here. Frail?
Here.
Shortino?
Here.
You have the forum.
Thank you. We have 3 items before you tonight, three. We need to have a motion to approve the bellwether proposal for operation review of fees. I get a motion by Minton, second by Frail.
So we discussed this at our last finance meeting. This came up because, as you all remember, when we were at the finance committee back in November, there was a fee study that was sent out, and it had one set of numbers in it. And then another one came the day of the committee, and it was given to all of us. And so it raised the question as to why did this distribution change? How does that change? What sends that into motion? And I had told you that I had tried to work with the state's attorney. We both tried to dig into it. The problem was I couldn't get a straight answer. He didn't have a straight answer. And he recommended that I reach out to Bellwether to try to figure it out. And as we were talking, I just started asking him a number of questions. Who determines this? How does this get determined? What happens if, what it appears as if it's all based on labor, but what happens if that labor gets shifted back? Do we have to have another study? There were all these questions. And so the recommendation was for us to do kind of an operational review of fees, which to me seemed like probably a good idea, since a number of you are asking me to explain this to you and I can't. But you're also being asked to vote on these fees. And so with that, I had worked through some of this with Bellwether, and they have presented this letter of agreement for us tonight. There's kind of 2 areas. One is to kind of look through and give us, here are your fees, here's how they're distributed, here's where they go, here's the statute that guides them. And they would have to work with our elected and department heads to kind of analyze and review these. And then they would give us a report. And then the second part is to work to try to understand, I know there's been all these questions. What are the processes and authorities for the county clerk to do this? To do these increases for employee salaries. And I know we've asked our labor attorney to look into this. He said when I was talking to him that this would probably be helpful as he's trying to guide the board as well. So with that, I'm recommending that we follow through and do this operational review.
Yeah, go ahead, Mindy. Just for information, Wendy did send an email out to each and every elected official that had any fee funds to let them know what this was about, what the intention was, ask for their participation. So all those affected were notified, and questions were answered, and so it's not like this is being done without their input, their knowledge, which I thought was very helpful. So, Mindy, any question?
Yeah, I don't have the proposal. I don't know if I should have the proposal.
You should have it at 2007. We're a little bit, there's a lot of information tonight, which is really easy to get some of
I
this.
don't have it. Okay.
I'll hand you mine. The total cost for the project, is that you're gonna
Yeah,
ask,
that's what
is
I said.
$8,000, yes. And it takes about 2 to 4 weeks, and Bruce had said that they can start in February, if the board approves this.
Okay, Mr. Graff?
I have a question and a comment. My question is, would this study provide the board and elected officials with some direction on what the fees could be spent on?
Yes.
Okay, because I support this motion because my concern is looking back at some expenditures from the fee funds, and I'll just highlight these for the board. From the Recorder's Special Document Storage Fund, during the last fiscal year, we spent $1,300. Part of that was on 4 executive chairs and 1 leather chair. So apparently, we're putting stuff from the Recorder D's office, we're piling it on chairs for future filing purposes, I don't know what. Also from that same fund, we bought a Tazewell County logo rug. Are we hiding documents under the rug, or what's the point of that? From the county clerk's vital statistics automation fund, which in my opinion would be to automate marriage license, death certificates, and previously to now birth certificates. We bought a conference table, so we're going to pile these records on a conference table, apparently. I think these need to be investigated. I think we need this process. We need to get a handle on what's being paid out of the fee funds. The taxpayers of this county are paying fees, much to Mr. Harris's chagrin, for services. Those fees are to pay for what it costs to do whatever we're providing services for. I don't see how, well, I forgot the TV set. I don't see how buying a TV set for the employee's break room out of a fee fund fits those requirements. I encourage the board to support this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Next item is to approve a transfer for county administration. Motion, please. Motion by Harris, second by Darcy. 26.
And I'll just quickly explain. We didn't budget this. I didn't know this was coming. Some of this fee fund stuff came up after the budget. So unfortunately, I don't have the $8,000 in our budget. We're pretty lean this year in terms of what we have. So this would have to come from the contingency line if you approve it.
Okay, any questions on this recommendation? See none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then finally, we have F20-05, sorry, I'm out of order. Approve the transfer for funds returned to the state. This has to do with our revolving loan fund. Motion by Conick, second by Prail.
So what we just, I think the guidance that we've received from the executive committee is that we know we have to return the funds to the state from that revolving loan fund. The outstanding loans, you guys approved to give them, if they pay them back, then we'll give them a 20% discount so they can get funding. But, and Sally's here and she may be able to better explain this, but essentially we send back the loan balance and they will grant all that money back to us in 2 projects. It's going to come in the form of 88 projects. One, to get buildings within the county, so it'll be not only our Tazewell County building, it'll be municipal or township or any of those buildings. We will get those coming through, so that's one, so it'll update, so we'll be ADA compliant within our county. The second one will be some sidewalk upgrades, so getting into some of these business areas or even some of our buildings, we'll update that as well. So with that, we have to return the money for these loans. We already know all 4 of the people have said they are going to be paying them back. They have till April to pay us back to get this entire, to get their 20% discount essentially. And to do that though, I have to send the money back, which we didn't have at that point either. So it would be $147,000 from contingency, and it will become a notes receivable when we get the money back. We'll just take that down. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, questions on this? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And we are recessed out of in-place finance. Up next, we have an in-place Human Resources Committee meeting. Mrs. Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman. Sue, will you call the roll, please?
Chairman Frail.
Here.
Darcy. Here. Atkins.
Here.
Connick. Here. Rapp.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Emick. Mennel.
Here.
Minton.
Here.
Newhouser.
Here.
Shortino.
Here.
We have the quorum.
Thank you. First of all, I want to tell a special thank you to Jeff Lauer for all the help that he's given us with the negotiations this year, and it's certainly a very professional office that he's running, and he's done a good job in helping the county team as we work through the negotiations. So I especially want to thank him for that and for the report tonight. And if you haven't tried the Sheriff's app, it's a good one. It's worth looking into. It's a shock in my mind because of what goes on in that. We know what goes on, but the enormity of what goes on in our county office is worth reviewing. And secondly, Bradley is ahead 46-36. We're into the second half. Okay, under new business, do I have a motion for HR 2007? Tony with motion and Greg Mennel for the second, please. Okay, and this is a recommendation to approve a replacement hire for circuit clerk. This is something that kind of came about just recently with Link. He lost an employee to death in December, and then he has 2 other employees that are making moves. And so at this time, he's not planning to expand back to 3 people, but he does need some help. So if you would approve this motion, he could go ahead and hire somebody for his office, at least 1 person. I did give approval for him to post the position, even though he had not gotten your approval, but that way he could start things in motion. If you choose not to vote for him for this, then of course he would pull that. Do I have any questions? And Link is here, I believe, in case there are any. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes, and we are in recess. Thank you.
Madam Chairman? Or Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
May I have public comments?
Yes, I didn't ask for it. I didn't have it on the
Thank
agenda,
you.
I forgot. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, thank you.
Go ahead.
At the last Human Resources Committee meeting, I inquired about the committee and subsequently the board taking some type of affirmative action to stop the raises that were awarded by the county clerk. I thought we were going to have a resolution tonight, but apparently that didn't take place. My question to the committee, to you as chair, is what are we going to do? I'm of a belief that we need to do something, and I'm of a belief that we need to do something sooner rather than later. We should have done something when we found out about this in November, but we still, to this point, haven't done anything. My question is, what are we going to do to correct this wrong?
I'll take first responsibility in that we did not add a resolution this time, and that was with conferring with our administrator and based on our chair's, our state's attorney's information. So I would take that as part of my responsibility that was not done. Beyond that, I do not have anything further to add, but if from what my colleague, if he has anything he'd like to say, I should be happy to have him explain it. I think we all received the letter that he gave us, and beyond that, I have nothing more to say on the matter. So.
Well, my point, Madam Chair, is that the letter we got from Mr. Hawley dealt with the legal issues of a county board telling an elected official what the salaries would be for his or her employees, but it did not address a county that had a collective bargaining agreement. And we have a collective bargaining agreement in place. This wouldn't be resolved through the courts. My understanding would be it would be resolved through the grievance procedure. And I'm all in favor of stopping these raises and let the employees file a grievance and let an arbitrator rule if the contract was violated. We have a contract that everyone agreed to. The county clerk, the county board, and all the employees in that union agreed to what the salaries would be for those positions until November 30th of this year. That has been violated. Normally when a contract is violated, a grievance is filed. I'm of the opinion that we need to pass a resolution to stop those raises, suspend those raises. I'm not asking for back pay, and I should say again, I am not have any animosity towards an employee who received a raise. I understand that our employees are not well paid and there are issues out there. But I also know, as a person who was a boss for 23 years, it's pretty easy to manage people when you give them a $10,000 raise. It keeps everybody very happy and it takes the load off you. You become a very popular boss. Now, unfortunately, every employee that's ever worked for me needed a raise, and they deserved a raise. But the realistic thing of life is, and of us, we represent the taxpayers of Tazewell County. We had a legitimate collective bargaining agreement in place that has been disregarded. That needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The grievance has been filed. We have had that discussion. We are in conference with our attorney at this point, and we have replied to the grievance. And when do you want to go on any further with that?
I think what Nick is, I think he's saying something different. I think what he's saying is that we stop the raises and allow the employees that receive the raises to grieve us.
Okay, I misunderstood.
Is that correct?
All right.
That's what he's
Okay.
suggesting, and that's something that I haven't spoken with our labor attorney on at this point, and then it involves the state's attorney. It gets me into a really interesting place with that. So,
so would you offer to do that for us, please?
I will start with Mr. Holly and then make sure he's good with me going. It's a weird thing, right? Like, I typically start with my colleague and the state's attorney's office, and then when it's a matter that they can't solve, then they say you go to this attorney because that office pays those legal bills.
Okay, Russ, comment?
Yeah, but I don't like it. I have a point of order. First of all, I feel like I'm sitting in an HR committee meeting. You are?
Well, you are.
But I mean, I feel like I'm sitting in a full-blown hour-and-a-half HR committee meeting, which is inappropriate for the board forum. Second of all, the passion shown here tonight are legitimate because you've got a critical issue. But the point of order is that we have Resolution E 2013, which we're going to have all this discussion again on the censure resolution. So can we just close the HR meeting and then have this at the appropriate time? Well, that's my point of order.
Right, and the request was a committee member from HR asked to speak, and I overlooked him at the beginning when we should have had comments from the committee. We'll take this under advisement if you will appreciate that, Mr. Graff, and if there's no further business before the committee, we are in recess.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Brown. And finally, we have an in-place transportation committee meeting. Mr. Sims. Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry.
Sue, would you call a roll, please, for the Transportation Committee?
Chairman Mennel.
Here.
Sin.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Holford. Here. Hubby.
Here.
Longfellow. Minton. Here. Frail.
Here.
Happy form.
Okay, the first item of business is to approve the minutes from the November 12th meeting. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Tony and Brandon, a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Motion to take A through F together?
A through what?
A through F?
I'll second that.
I just wanted to explain this a second. These 6 motions, A through F, IDOT did an audit or a review of some of the reporting to them. It's gone on since way back to 2009, they weren't happy with a few things, so it's just cleaning things up, a procedural thing. It has nothing, no financial implications or anything like that. So, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of A through F, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The next one is G. Could I have a motion for that? Get that. Nancy, and a second. Brandon. Okay, this, you might remember back in November, we had two resolutions on considering the county engineer's salary. One of them was pulled and it was amended, but in reality we should have done both of them. So because of we only did one, they don't match up. So this resolution is to avoid the one we didn't pull and replace it with T1934, just to so they match up the same. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So in November, what was the proposed county engineer salary, and then tonight, what is the proposed county engineer salary? Let's get to the bottom line.
The proposed salary was 4%. It was amended to 3%.
In November.
Yes.
And that passed or failed? Or
it passed.
And tonight?
This was to bring the one that didn't get pulled up, and it'll be it's 3% also. There's two resolutions.
So three,
one.
So 3 plus 3 is 6?
No.
Okay, explain this, please.
There's two resolutions. One for reporting to IDOT because county engineers paid out of motor fuel tax. We have to. One of them is to cover that. So
it'll end up 3% of what was FY 2019 salary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And the last one is item H. It's to approve a speed study for Broadway Road. Could I have a motion? Nancy, motion by Nancy, second by Russ. This speed study was done by the Highway Department on request from residents along Broadway. This is near the corner of Veterans and Broadway. It's just a short distance to the east of Veterans Drive. There's a church and on one side and a veterinary animal hospital on the other. It's just right there close to the intersection. They approved the reduction of the speed to 45 from 55. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chair, is this for a study or is this to change the speed limit?
It's to change the speed limit.
Okay, and it's only for a quarter mile to the east of Veterans Drive, correct?
Correct.
It's not all the way to Springfield Road?
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We're in recess, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Now moving on to the consent agenda. As it stands, because of the in-place meetings, we are already going to pull item 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 28, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41. Are there any others that anybody would like to hold?
Yes.
14? Hang on a minute, please. Okay, so back up. 15 and 16 are not pulled because they didn't come out of committee. My apologies. 14? Any others?
Did you say 26?
No. 26? Mr. Parker?
I make a motion to approve the remaining of the consent agenda, which is what, one thing or something?
Yeah, not much. Okay, are there any other items that need to be pulled before we approve the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then also I'd like, Mr. Crawford.
Sorry, Crawford, who was the second? Well, thank you.
And then I'll go ahead and move to appointments and reappointments to go ahead and get those taken care of. Can I get a motion to approve appointments A through H? Motion by Sundell, second by Minton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Abstain, you need to abstain.
Okay, so noted. Okay, moving on to the items that were pulled now. Let's move to item number 14. Yeah, Mr. Sen?
Yes, this is a good thing that we're doing, helping the FFA group out of Tremont. There's 20 acres to the south of our property that makes a beautiful area for them to run and stuff like that. There's a suggested I think there's a suggested lease amount of what the average was around the county. But I guess my point is that the most we probably ever made on a shared with the current farmer is probably $150 an acre, and the suggested cash rent was $221. I would, anything above 150, I think we're good. So I'd be good with 175 or 200. But so I guess I would like to amend the 221 down to 175.
Okay. So that's a form of a motion to amend?
Yes.
So we're going from what amount to?
From 221, I believe, was the number that I heard.
To 175?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Mr. Graff? Everybody understand what we're doing? Okay. All those, Jay, we have a farm that we really shouldn't be in the farming business. So all those in favor of amending the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anything else, Mr. Sen? Okay. And then all those in favor of the motion as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, item number 18. This came out of Finance. Motion for approval. Motion by Minton, second by Trail. This is approving the bellwether operational fees study. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 19 goes along with that to pay for it. Approve the transfer for county administration. Motion. Wolf, second by Hovey. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then item number 20, approve the transfer of funds to return to the state for the revolving loan fund. Motion by Darcy, second by Comet. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item 21 is to approve a replacement hire for community development. Motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I make a motion for 21, 22, 23, and 26?
21, 22, 23, and 26. Okay? Any objection to that? Minton? Okay. Everybody understand what we're doing? We're approving all four of those together.
21 through 26.
21 through 26. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Motion by Trail.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order for parliamentarian. We actually had two item 20s on the agenda. and I think we need to clarify which one was passed by the consent agenda, and if you look at the bottom of the page, so we need to, I don't know how we need to fix that. But.
Yeah, I did not notice that in looking over the agenda. However, our board rules specifically require that the in-place meetings cannot be part of the consent agenda, have to be pulled. So I think that the board chairman was the one, or our fill-in board chairman, was the one who actually said that 20 was pulled, and I'm assuming you did that based on the in-place meeting.
That's correct.
So I think that it's clear, because of the fact that one of them was upon approval of an in-place meeting and the other one was not. So at this point, I believe both of them passed. The one having to do with canvas in the workplace would have been passed as part of the consent agenda.
Does that make sense, Mr. Grant?
It makes sense, or we can fix it by making a motion to approve it and approve it. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve HR 20-01.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Motion by Joesting. This is to approve a revision to our county employee personnel policy handbook regarding cannabis in the workplace.
Point of order, it was approved in the consent agenda.
I know we've already talked about that, but we're going to do it this way, so.
We're wasting time.
Okay, any questions? Joesting. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
So noted. Back to item number 28. Motion to pull this was Nick.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Wait,
Well, I know we got to get it on the floor to talk about.
okay, sorry.
So second. Okay, Darcy. Okay, go ahead.
So there is some language that we need to add that Sally Hanley had mentioned for us to do. So on the actual resolution in front of you, the very first whereas, let me make sure I've got it right myself, because this is always fun. Okay, no, the third whereas. So where it says the county has the funds in their general fund, and it's on the last page, the third whereas. What she would like us to add is the county has the funds in their general fund account to cover the balance of the 4 remaining active RLF loans determining their option. We need to add the language and the 1 remaining RLF loan to continue in the program. We need to add that there. And then on the very last section of whereas, in the first bullet point, after we say that the county used general fund dollars to cover the balance of the 4 remaining active RLF loans and the 1 remaining RLF loan to continue in the program. That's on the first dot point. We need to add that same language and the 1 remaining RLF loan to continue in the program under the third dot point after their option. And we need to add that there. And then we also need to add it again after default, and is still in default at the time of the RLF closure, submits a payment to the county in any form will be returned to the DCO. And I apologize, this thing has been, it's the state working with the state, and we're trying to get this in their time frame, which has to be returned this week, and we've been working with them, but there have been a number of changes flowing through here. And so at executive, you guys decided that you would change and allow that remaining RLF loan to continue in the program because it was not in default, but that changed all this language, and when Sally went back, she found this section that needed to be changed as well.
I move this be amended to reflect the language.
Okay, is there a second to that, Mr. Atkins? Thank you. So all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then all those in favor of approving as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, item number 33, motion to get this on the table. Motion by Harris, second by Wolf. Okay. Mr. Graff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've been instructed to read the resolution. Whereas the county's executive committee recommends to the county board to authorize a formal censure of the Tazewell County Clerk, John C. Ackerman, and whereas Tazewell County has some of the finest employees in central Illinois, and whereas the Tazewell County Board strives to provide equity and fairness in pay and benefits across the departments by using objective measures in evaluating positions, and whereas Tazewell County, with the lowest tax rate in the state of Illinois, has a board that endeavors to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money entrusted to us, and whereas trust between the board and the elected officials is vital to a healthy, functioning government, and whereas Tazewell County Clerk John C. Ackerman purposely and knowingly withheld his intention to give grossly inflated raises to his employees, and whereas the raises are unsustainable and have made negotiations with other bargaining units significantly more difficult by giving his employees an average raise of 18% with the highest of 62%, and whereas the Tazewell County Clerk entered into a sidebar agreement with the Teamsters Union for these wage increase without the approval of the Tazewell County Board, and the sidebar agreement was not followed as there were no formal position evaluations conducted and the raises were given arbitrarily, and whereas this fugitive financial maneuver has created a morale issue within the Tazewell County employees, especially those within the same bargaining unit as the county clerk's employees, as it gives the appearance of unfairness in which the Tazewell County Board had no control over. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tazewell County Board does hereby formally censure Tazewell County Clerk John C. Ackerman for disregarding a well-established budgeting process and putting Tazewell County in future financial peril.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions at this time from the floor? Mr. Hovey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight's been a really rough night. I mean, the members of the public, I'm sure they've really enjoyed their bread and circuses. I mean, to be honest with you, they should cancel their Netflix subscriptions and come here more often if we're going to have meetings like this. But to get to my point, Mr. Ackerman, I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed that it has come to this. Tonight, I was wrestling with what I was going to say. And I think we're at a point where you need to start looking in the mirror and start asking yourself, what is my legacy going to be as Tazewell County Clerk? Because I can tell you there's a lot of emotions here tonight. A lot of emotions, some with good cause, others, quite frankly, I think they're using this as an opportunity to carry out some old vendettas. But to be very blunt with you, I think this is a very sad situation, and I don't think we would have had these problems had we been more open in our communication. We need to talk more, and sometimes that means maybe being a little more transparent. You campaigned on transparency. That's a value you and I share. You know, when I think about what you've done so far, one of the best things you have done is put that camera in this room so people can see what we do. I want to see more of the positive John C. Ackerman that I know, and not these shenanigans where we're in a very long meeting with a lot of angry people, some justifiable, others, as I said, I think they're milking an old vendetta. So with that in mind, I am going to vote yes to a censure, although it pains me to do it. Now, our auditor made a comment, this is like impeaching. I disagree with that completely. I think that is over-dramatizing the situation. What this is us just saying, John, look in the mirror and think about what that legacy is. Finally, John, you're a very proud dad. you've got great kids, you've got a great family. Think about the value of teamwork. Are you teaching your children teamwork by the actions that you're doing as Tazewell County Clerk? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Crawford?
Yeah, I got some comments. Not too many people in this room I served 4 years on the county board, and then I got elected as a county officer, and then I went back on the county board for a couple of years. And so I can understand the relationship, the legal and the logistical relationship between county board and county officer. When I left the county auditor's office, I went to work for Jim Edgar in charge of courts and law enforcement. My job was to meet with state attorneys and judges and law enforcement. And in those meetings with judges, we didn't just talk about the Secretary of State's office, we talked about internal control. Because I was very interested. I've been vice chairman of the Illinois Association of County Auditors, and we had certain counties where there was wars going on. Sort of like now here. Fortunately, there wasn't in my office then, but I wanted to know, and there were judges. I sat with two judges, one the presiding judge in Lake County, who actually rendered the decision on the lawsuit between the one or two county officers in Lake County and the county board. So I learned a whole lot. In fact, I was always wishing that I had known that when I was auditor. I'm very disappointed. Sort of what you said, Brandon. I associate myself, and I don't always do that with your remarks because they're very dramatic. But I do associate with your remarks. I'm very disappointed. My friend John, and he is my friend, said earlier that not too many board members went in to see him. I went in to see him last year when he did that last year, and then I talked to him this year. So I've done it both years. And I thought last year, after our conversation, maybe naively, that it wouldn't happen again, that I was wrong. So if some of you on the board think that John sort of stuck a sharp stick in the board's eye, or Tazewell County's eye, then this censure resolution sticks a sharp stick back in his eye. And that's a hell of a note. That's a real, what Brandon said, modeling the right behavior for our constituents that are supposed to be able to look up to us for some wisdom on occasion. It doesn't work that way. So I'm as outraged as my friend Mr. Graff about what John did. But this, the censure resolution, I don't even know if it's legal. So I'm sure Stuart hasn't looked at it. But I know that it's, even if it was legal, it would be improper. I've never heard of it before. I think somebody's been watching TV too much and Nancy Pelosi and coming up with stuff like this. But I can tell you this. So am I saying, since I disagree with John, but I disagree with this, that we just do nothing? How many of you know me? Hell no. What needs to happen is there needs to be a serious meeting with John, the finance chairman, the administrator, and others that can bring benefit to the meeting. Nobody that should not bring benefit or value to the meeting. And it needs to get resolved. A censure resolution is going to drive the fish to deep water. You think he's going to want to cooperate with the county board after you censure it publicly and you know, take votes away from a possible re-election? No. Come on. Use common sense. But we can't ignore it either, like Nick said. Nick said, I wrote it down, we should stop the raises. I disagree. In fact, Stuart and Mike would send us a letter saying that's illegal if you do that, and they'd be right. But we can incentivize and encourage Mr. Ackerman to do the right thing. I was asked, maybe a couple more minutes, I'll be done, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your patience. I was asked at the but about a year ago at a UCCI meeting, we had a bunch of new board chairmen that are elected not by, like Dave, but by their county boards. And they came in there and they were tearing sackcloth and spitting vinegar. They said, we need to fire our county clerk, we need to fire our state's attorney, we need to fire the treasurer. And we said, why? They won't cooperate. They won't go along with our personnel records, and they won't go along with our HR policies. And the guy who is Herman Bodavis is our chief legal counsel for UCCI. And he tried to explain to them that, well, they don't have the authority to do that. Well, that just incented them. They were mad, they were red, and they were raising their voice. So he said, Russ, you've been doing this since 1975, why don't you share your views? And I did. I shared a lot of what I've already shared. But what I said is this, it's a dance. The county officers don't have all the authority, even state's attorney, and even sheriff that's got the guns. And the county board doesn't have all the authority. So what you gotta do is you gotta work together, you gotta dance. You gotta do the dance. And the dance is made up of mutual respect and mutual dignity. And if either one loses some of that mutual respect and dignity, then guess what happens? Neither one wins, but there is a loser. It's the taxpayers, it's our citizens. They lose. Because we end up spending attorney's fees on both sides to fund the case, the legal case, of both parties. And the taxpayers pay for two opposing sides. Can you imagine? Anything that, if you're a conservative, that would infuriate you. Heck, I think if you're a progressive, it would infuriate you. So we've got to stop this, but we can't stop it by stopping the raises or sending a message to payroll or something like that. We have to sit down with John and work with John, and along with Team Player and a lot of other stuff, realize that there's a lot of negative impact. Nick mentioned collective bargaining, that's one. But even if there's not a collective bargaining agreement, there's a lot of really good employees in Tazewell County, both in bargaining units and non-bargaining units. And I know because I've been here since 1975. I chaired a wage and salary subcommittee in 1978. They gave it to a new guy. I'd only been here a year and a half, probably because they didn't want to touch it politically. And what it did is it looked at all the salaries and we reconciled the inequities. And there were people that really enjoyed it because they got raises. And there were people that were really upset, like the probation department, because they got frozen for about 3 years as a catch-up. This kind of thing, John, causes that. Those inequities then cause the county to try to look at the whole picture, pay money for advice, and then spend time and energy to rectify it. So we've spent a lot of money in this space before, and we don't need to keep spending it. We need to make sure that people are team players. So I've probably said too much. I'm an old guy. Next year I'm going to be 70 years old. I didn't know people live that long. And I can tell you that I've served a long time on this board. And I love this county, I love these employees, I love all the board members I've served with. But we've got to start modeling the right behavior for our citizens and for our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Am I allowed to ask a question as opposed to a comment? Okay. I have a couple questions. One, when John was speaking earlier, he said that the pay increases were like a little under 90,000. And the sheet in front of us, I'm taking it, it's the 103.4.
So let me kind of clarify that.
Yeah, I'd like to know the difference.
There have been a lot of estimates floated around, even at our meetings and what, it's projected to be this and projected to be that. So what I had Wendy do is I want to deal in fact. I don't want there to be estimates floating around like there have been in the newspaper and the press over the last week. So these are right from payroll. And these are what these people are being paid because these raises went into effect a little while ago. So as you can see, year over year, annualized,
the raises that were granted amount to $103,423.24. Okay? That's for the 12 employees that are there. And then you can see the percentages, because I know we've had some estimates on percentages of raises. And Mr. Ackerman is right. If you look at the 10% or 13% on $14, it's not that much money in essence. But as you go up the line there, the lowest raise was 5% a year. The highest raise was 62% a year. So we can average, we can throw ballparks out, but those are the percentages that are true fact before you tonight. The other thing that I would like to mention is, obviously, when John was making his projections, he was talking about just his department as to what effect there was going to be there. But the thing that I think a lot of people were disappointed with was that we know that there's consequential effects to these raises and the money that's being paid. Well, I asked Wendy to give us those consequential or indirect costs, if you will. And for example, we have to pay more IMRF retirement benefits because the wages are higher. We have to pay more Social Security benefit because the wages are higher. That ended up in $19,898.63 annually, not just one time. That's going to recur each year, almost $20,000 more over the raises themselves. Then we have to pay more in workers' compensation premium, because workers' compensation premium is based upon payroll. Your payroll goes up, your premium goes up. That's another $672. For a total, what I'm going off of what this is really going to cost us in 1 year, their cost the county, is $123,994.12. And I also asked Wendy today, because we have had a grievance from the collective bargaining unit already, because the employees that didn't get the raises as part of that union grieved, and we've had a hearing on that and have had legal fees already, and those total $3,000 in legal expenses to date. So now we're up to $126,994. So if you look at really what this is costing year over year, and not guesstimates and projections, these are real dollars, and that's why I wanted this before you tonight. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. And then to follow up kind of what you said about the union, I'm just a little curious because I really don't know. So what I understand is that the union, the John's employees are in, there's other members of that union that did not get the benefit of that, and that there was like an agreement between that they were okay, that part of the union, like your employees broke off and kind of did something on their own outside of the other people. Is that correct? And then how did the other group feel about how that worked out? I mean, I know they grieved us, but I'm just curious if they felt like they were maybe duped a little bit, that they got left out of that. I don't know.
This is great.
Having gone to quite a few meetings this year about salaries, pay, and had the support of this board for a certain percent raise, we feel like a lot of what we've done has been wasted. Because all those employees that we felt were beginning to understand our financial situation, we've made some agreements, it was working. Now we have a lot of unhappy people who feel like we were not fair to them. And that was not our intention. We were up front with them. You were up front with them. I was with Wendy and our attorneys and Jeff Lauer and Craig. We're working really hard to try to get these salaries so that we can afford and pay our people as well as we can. What would you think? I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't happy now. And that's not our fault. We worked hard and we're not done. But maybe Wendy wants to say more.
You asked how employees felt. I know the week they found out, we had people crying, people angry, and I just had to, people that came to me, I just had to explain that there is no control from the board on this. There's nothing, the board didn't do this, the board didn't make this decision, and I apologize, but that's about as much as you can get from me, right? We didn't decide. So in terms of how they feel, I can't speak for them. I can tell you what I saw. I saw anger and I saw tears. So those are the things that I saw. The sidebar agreement was an agreement that the county clerk would send his employees through the position evaluation committee if it came down to the point that he was going to send them there. That's a conversation I actually had with John. So during this, really quickly, I do want to make sure you guys all know, I know there was a comment that we had been discussing this for 6 months. What we had been discussing is he felt his employees were not paid in terms of comparison to the other employees. That's a different conversation that I'm going to give these kind of increases. This didn't come to me. I wasn't aware of these kind of increases. Well, I did know John had an issue with the pay. My advice, I give it to electeds and department heads. If you feel that your employees aren't paid for the job that they're doing, then you redo their job description with them to reflect what their actual duties are. You send it to the PEC, or in John's case, you send it to the hate group. When we met, I asked John, Tim was there, Nancy was there, I was there, Tina was there, and we said, can you send these to the PEC? Like if truly they're not paid in a comparable fashion to the other employees in the county, then it should be adjusted. And I can completely support that. But can you do that? And he said, no, they've already been given. So by the time we found out, the increases had been given, and there was no going through that objective process. That's how that happened. So that's what that sidebar agreement relates to. That's how we've done things. I realize everybody has internal control and they can do things. However, if they're elected, they can do things in their fashion, and I respect all of that. I was just trying to get us to work together because we're shared union. And because we're in a shared union, anything he does can blow up everything else. I've spent 5 years working with these unions. I feel like I have not had major issues. We've gotten through negotiations. All has gone fine. I do feel like it erodes the trust just a little bit. I'll continue to work it and to try to be fair to everybody involved. But that's what that piece is, the sidebar piece. That would be typically how that would be addressed.
There's been a lot of talk. A lot of people have mentioned it tonight. I know we received an opinion letter from the state's attorney. There's been a lot of questions on authority. If you listened to Mr. Graff read this resolution, there's nothing in this resolution questioning Mr. Ackerman's authority to do what he did. Did anybody hear anything about authority? No. So this censure resolution is not dealing with authority, who has the right or the legal authority to do what. All we're doing in this censure is exercising what the chairman feels is our right. We don't have many rights, is what I'm finding out. Over the last couple of years, it's become evident and clear to me that the 21 people sitting here tonight as the county board, we're elected officials. There's other elected officials in this county, but what's becoming evident to me very quickly is that we, the 21 board members, have the least authority in this county when it comes to the day-to-day business and what happens. Because every time we turn around and question any actions, for example, what's happening, we're told that's none of our business. We can't do anything with it. And they're right. It's true. It's by statute. So if this is the only thing in our quiver that we can bring forth and be in consensus and to let the public know that this was not of our doing, we don't agree with this. This is not the way that Tazewell County operates. Never has. We are trying to be fair to all of our employees, not just 12. If this is what we have to do to make that statement, go on record and do it publicly, and that's the only thing we can do, that's why we're here talking about this tonight. I don't want to make a mockery of this, but I just want to kind of drill this down to really just a basic principle. And I'm going to use an analogy, and I hope you're not offended. But so in my house, my wife and I, we have a joint checking account, and I'll call it our general fund for analogy here. And every month, through my employer, I put money into that checking account, and so does my wife. And throughout the month, I spend money and she spends money, and we buy things, and our monthly expenses come out of that checking account. But we have an agreement, and anytime there's a large purchase to be made, we talk about it, and we consult each other, right? Well, let's just say I'm getting ready to turn 52, so I'm going to have a midlife crisis. And I decide I want to walk out and buy a brand new 2020 dripping red Chevy Corvette. Okay? Do I have the authority to do that in my household? Yeah, I do. Because I have the authority over my checking account just like my wife does. Now, can I afford it? Don't know. Maybe, maybe not. That's yet to be determined. Kind of like these raises we think. John thinks they're affordable, but they may not be affordable. We don't know. Because we don't know what our budget's going to be looking like next year, the year after that yet. So I have the authority to go buy the car. I could probably afford it. Maybe I can't. I don't know once the payments come. But the third thing is, and the question I think we all need to be asking ourselves, and I think that's what everybody's trying to get to, is it right for me to make that purchase? And I'll tell you right now that my wife and my 2 daughters that are in college probably would not be very happy with me going out and buying a red Corvette for Tim when I could be using our general fund to do things the right way for them. That's the way I'm looking at this. John had the authority to do what he did. Nobody's disputing that. Can he afford it? We don't know. That's yet to be determined. Was it the right thing to do? In my opinion, no. Can a lot of people's opinions sitting here tonight? No. And all we're trying to do in this censure is to deliver that message. I've had private conversations with John this week. We have a mutual respect for each other. I hope Mr. Crawford's right that lesson learned, we move down the road, but he's going to be the county clerk for the next 3 years. We're going to be the county board for however long, and when it comes to these kinds of things, we have to work together. But in this particular case, we've got some issues, we've got some bridges to build, because as Wendy said, she's worked really hard ever since she's been here to work with employees, to be the champion for the employees, and I think because of that, we have as good of relations with all of our collective bargaining units and employees that we ever had. And now, people are kind of going to their corners now, simply because they're not sure how this is going to work out. So, with that being said, does anybody else have any questions? Want to make any comments before we act on this resolution? Mr. Crawford.
I'll make this real short. We don't know if this is a legal tool in our kit. So, and we also know that it's a stick in the eye. And we've received a stick in the eye, in my opinion, and I think most of the board members' opinion. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to put another stick back, like revenge stick? Or do you want to do something that really fixes the problem? Because once we pass this censure thing, you think he's incentivized to then work with us on this? So that's one thing, that it's the tool that we're suggesting here, A, doesn't fix anything, B is a stick, and then C reduces our chance, and it might not even be legal. So what is the solution? The solution is to fix it, and that involves a meeting and rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard work. If you guys want me to participate in it, I will. I think it should be the administrator, the finance chairman, the county clerk, at least, and then whoever else can help bring a resolution to this. And that's up to you guys to decide, not me. I'm willing if you want. But I'll tell you what, a censure resolution not only doesn't get us there, it still leaves all the problems we talked about with collective bargaining and the bad precedent and all the other stuff. John might even want to do it a third year next year. We need to fix it. And it's not hard to fix. I don't want to be real specific, but Tazewell County already fixed a similar situation since I've been here. It involved the Tazewell County State's Attorney's Office. He gave unauthorized raises to assistant state's attorneys. This goes back a lot of years. And we were outraged, and we fixed it. And I'm not going to sit here in a public meeting and tell you how we fixed it, but I will in a private meeting. Thank you.
Any further comments before we vote?
Roll call.
Okay, roll call.
Atkins?
No.
Connick?
Aye.
Crawford,
No.
Darcy,
Yes.
Graff,
No.
Hall,
No.
Harris,
Yes.
Holford,
No.
Hovey,
No.
and Mickey. Josting,
Yes.
Longfellow, Mennel,
No.
Minton,
No.
Newhouser,
Yes.
Frail,
Yes.
Rich Simpson, Squartino, Sin,
No.
Sundell,
Yes.
Wolf,
Yes.
Chairman Zimmerman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 yeses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 noes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, sorry, 9 noes. 8 to 9, the motion fails.
Okay.
With 1 abstain.
Hang on. Mr. Atkins, how does that count?
Sorry, I didn't hear what the actual vote was.
The vote was 8 to 9, 8 ayes, 9 noes, with 1 abstain.
So that would fail.
Okay. Moving on to the next few items, I would take a motion to approve item 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38 as a group. Mr. Crawford, second by Hovey. We did this coming out of committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Then moving on to item number 40. Make the change for the county engineer salary. Motion by Connett, second by Hall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And then finally, item number 41, to approve the vote of the speed study. Motion by Wolf, second by Minton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Number 39.
No, it was part of Okay, is there any more business before? Yeah,
We do 39.
we did. That was part of the, I thought that was part of the vote.
If I think that you said through 38, that's why I kind of questioned it.
Okay, good catch. So back to item number 39. Motion by Graff, second by Mennel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Is there any more business before the board, Mr. Crawford?
One last thing, Dave Zimmerman asked me to bring this up. So raise your hand if you have represented Tazewell County on the UCCI Leadership Academy. So look around. Some people have done it. I've done it. Dave Zimmerman's done it. And I think it's so good that I think that before you go to the county clerk, we don't have this law, so but before you go to the county clerk and are able to even legally take petitions to run, I think you ought to have this certification already in your portfolio or you can't pull petitions. That's how much I think it is. Anyway, long story short, registration is now open for the 2020 Leadership Academy. The application deadline is April 1, April Fool's Day. And if you talk to any of these people who've been, they'll tell you how much they've learned and how good it was and the relationships you make with other people in other counties. It just goes on and on and on and gets good. So Dave wanted me to share this. I've done so. Please let Dave or Wendy or I know if you're interested in participating. Thank you.
Okay, Bradley score, Nancy?
80 to 69. Brad.
Okay, all right.
I just have one last comment. For the people that are seasoned board members in here that were talking that we're going to work together, I really hope that you do help and that we all work together because I think we can and that's why I voted no. But I don't want to sit here and have this stuff all come back up because no one got in there and pulled their sleeves up. That's counting with John, which we appreciate his work and I appreciate the board members. But I don't want it just to be about talk and have it be on TV that we're all going to do something and that Wendy has worked very hard and we all have to work together and to support each other. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Just approve the bill from the council.
Oh, the calendar, I'm sorry. Yeah, motion to approve the calendar.
What draft?
Draft and both, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Since you're the only you talked to me.